Part of the trauma was really having been pushed to excel in everything. It was expected and not celebrated. And I thought I had to earn it to become lovable, to do more. My parents divorced when I was about 6 years old. The arguing continued all along till we were grown-ups via as kids. My whole family split. My siblings moved out. This person didn't talk to that person. And I felt I was always standing in between and always tried to make it good for everyone. And somehow I believed that it was all my fault. It doesn't make sense, but still somehow it felt like I was being punished for something, maybe for not being lovable enough. So he traveled away from Germany and he sent me this email confessing his love. And that was really like a turning point where I realized, okay, I have to change something. Like I can't continue just protecting my heart because I witnessed my parents' relationship this way and had some other failed relationships before. So he was in Bali, Indonesia at that time for his thesis research, and I didn't know him much, but I just decided to go visit him for 2 weeks all on my own. And I allowed myself to express also what I really thought, even if it was controversial. And I included like all the aspects of me, the artist, the philosopher, the nerd, the wild woman, the gentle and the ferocious, the subtle and the bold, the light and the darkness, and the evolved me and the struggling me, and I showed it all. And I wasn't striving to please the masses anymore.
Hey everyone, it's Sophia from Sacred You. Thank you so much for being here. A quick message before we dive into today's conversation. You may have been watching the podcast videos, but have not had a chance to hit that subscribe button. So if you have ever gained value from our videos, from our conversations, it would mean so much to us if you would hit that subscribe button below right now, or even just give us a like. And what that means is not only does it allow us to grow our subscriber base, but it allows us to bring in more important guests for you to listen to. And you will be one of the first ones to be notified. So please hit that subscribe button and let's get started on today's conversation. Welcome to the Pathways to Wellbeing podcast. Of course, my name's Sophia from Sacred You, but with me today is a beautiful Christiane who's joining us all the way from Germany. And Christiane, I'm really excited to be having this conversation, but it's talking all about transforming, going from the doubtful to becoming really super powerful, to stepping into your power. And I'm going to love the conversation. And I'd love to know a little bit about you, because I know that you help women to unleash their deep feminine power and to really go into that. So tell us, Christiane, tell us about you and how did you get to where?
So much for having me. I'm really excited to be here, Sophia. Yeah, so for the major part of my life, I've been dealing with the pattern of not trusting myself and never believing I was good enough, as so many of us. And my survival mechanism in that was being a really good girl, a people pleaser, and a hyperachiever. But still, I doubted myself and I trusted what others were saying and thinking over what I really knew in my heart. And I suppressed my feelings, my opinions, my appetites as a really good girl. And of course, these patterns were formed from traumas, childhood traumas, as we all have them. And for me, I grew up in a small town in Germany, and part of the trauma was really having been pushed to excel in everything. It was expected and not celebrated. And I thought I had to earn it to become lovable, to do more. And my parents divorced when I was about 6 years old. And the arguing continued all along till we were grown-ups via as kids. And it was expected of us to make this impossible decision of taking sides, which is just like impossible for a little child. And really my whole family split. My siblings moved out. This person didn't talk to that person. And I felt I was always standing in between and always tried to make it good for everyone. And somehow I believed that it was all my fault. As kids so often take it upon themselves. It doesn't make sense, but still Somehow it felt like I was being punished for something, maybe for not being lovable enough. And I remember this moment where, or that moment, that period where that flow of magic and love that you experience as a child, where that just tumbled down. And it was like as if it was just a stupid dream I had of the world. And it was like, okay, this is now real life. Like it's terrible, it's hard. You have to struggle, you have to suffer. And I remember how it was really like my world fell apart. And another trauma that contributed significantly to this pattern I mentioned was I was molested when I was just a young teenager, as so many women. But the really terrible part about it was really how it was received by my most trusted family member that I went to right away and told her what happened. And it wasn't like, oh my God, are you okay? Let me talk to him. I'll make sure this never happens. It was like, why do you always go to him? And for me, I somehow again thought it was my fault, even if it didn't really make sense to me. Somehow I thought, okay, and I just didn't talk about it for 25 years. And it happened again because, like, how do you really escape someone in your own house? And I just pretended it didn't happen. He pretended it didn't happen. And it really messed me up. At that time, I didn't quite realize how it had affected me, but it really made me more mistrust myself, mistrust my own natural sexuality. And I hid my pain and my shame and my insecurities under this big smile that I was always praised for. But underneath, I was really depressed and depleted and desperately searching for meaning. That's when I moved out. I went to study philosophy and literature and theater in Munich and in Italy. And I didn't, after 6 years of my master's and graduating with honors, I didn't find meaning. But I found the love of my life at that time, who is from Canada, and that's how I ended up here. But I almost missed him because I didn't open my mouth. I didn't say what I saw in us. I didn't dare to believe this was for me, that I could have it that well, that he'd be into me. And he was, but I sent him away and I said, oh, thank you, all the best. I thought I set him free. I thought better than him disappointing me, right? So he traveled away from Germany and he sent me this email confessing his love. And that was really like a turning point where I realized, okay, I have to change something. Like I can't continue just protecting my heart because I witnessed my parents' relationship this way and had some other failed relationships before. So he was in Bali, Indonesia at that time for his thesis research, and I didn't know him much, but I just decided to go visit him for 2 weeks all on my own. And we had the most amazing 2 weeks together. We still refer to it as our honeymoon. And after that, it was clear to move with him to Canada. And after that, I was really burned out, though. Like after having been a really good girl for so long, I really felt my body was just crashing, my nervous system was crashing. But instead of really resting, I thought, let's just study a whole bunch of other things, like holistic things this time. I studied things like holistic nutrition, trauma integration, life coaching, somatics, postnatal depletion later when I was a mother. And I went through many teachers and many awakenings, many courses, ayahuasca journeys, you name it, and let it all go, this striving to become a philosophy professor. And it just had zero meaning to me. And I knew I had to find it within myself. And the thing is, though, when you're awakening, it doesn't mean that we've made it, right? It's just the beginning. It's just uncovering the dirt that's at the bottom of the barrel, just being stirred up. You probably can relate, Sophia.
You don't realize how much is in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can feel worse than before, right? And as so many coaches, they think, okay, now we should have made it by now, because now we're teaching this, they beat themselves up even more. And so did I with this imposter syndrome. And I tried even harder to be really good. And really, I just encountered that same pattern and that vicious cycle of pain and coping, like never thinking I was good enough, not trusting myself. And I spent tons of money on business coaching, like over $100,000, and still didn't trust myself. And I was wondering why does it never really work for me? Like, why did my business not take off? And I caught it. Like I caught it this time. I realized, okay, I'm doing the exact same thing, just like more holistic. I could see that pattern again. But I could see it as, okay, it's an opportunity for me to finally change things and to step out of these boxes that I thought I had to put myself in, right? It's okay, niche down. You have to find your one thing. And I finally stopped making myself wrong about like how I was being and that I had this range of things in me. And I realized that, okay, we are our niche. And at that time, I finally started speaking from my deeper knowing, from what I knew, to not have everything supported by scientific research, but actually talking from my feminine wisdom. And I allowed myself to express also what I really thought, even if it was controversial. And I included like all the aspects of me, the artist, the philosopher, the nerd, the wild woman, the gentle and the ferocious, the subtle and the bold, the light and the darkness, and the evolved me and the struggling me, and I showed it all. And I wasn't striving to please the masses anymore and allowed just the gems of people to find me instead. And that's where this ease and this flow came back that I experienced as a child. And I realized, okay, this is actually the real thing. Like where we think, oh, this is the dream, this is actually reality. And the night where we're living and when we're relating to the suffering and we have to suffer and pay for our sins, I could see, okay, that is actually not true. And I realized why it wasn't working was because I had attracted the wrong people because I wasn't really showing who I really was. I wasn't really showing me. And then once I changed things, I can remember in the Roman calls, like everything changed and it was just an easy conversation and I didn't have to sell anything. And the types of clients I have now are also just, it's like a almost like an intimate friendship that isn't this harsh bounder of I'm the guru and you're the disciple. Like it's like a totally different relationship that's so enjoyable. And I'm gonna pause here because I know I talked for a long time now.
Okay, can I just thank you? And just to really take a moment to honor you, Christiane, for being true, for being real, for being your authentic self and allowing yourself to be vulnerable by sharing your journey to how you got to here. So really thank you, because when you allow yourself to be vulnerable, it gives permission for others. So thank you.
Yeah.
And there's so much there that we can continue with. You talked about people pleasing. That is such a big thing in today's world, how we do things for others. We want to please other people because we want their approval, because we don't approve of ourselves. You mentioned all the different moments in your life, all your experiences that have brought you to where you are now. And with those, all those moments, and when you found your partner, so congratulations on that too. Was there any defining moment in your life, any other one, that really helped you to step into your power and to claim your voice?
Yeah, like a big part of it was really the story with being molested. And for the longest time, I thought, I'll just have to get over it myself. And I did tons of like different holistic therapies and somatic trainings. But it just didn't really go away. Like I dreamt about it and I dreamt and in a dream, I talked about it and I screamed and I got away and I told my husband and it came right after the somatic training I took. It was very interesting. And my husband said, that's good because you talked about it. You screamed, you were able to scream and you got away. And I was like, oh, yeah, I guess it felt like a bad dream, like it was terrible, but that's good. And I realized it was important for me to talk about it. And it took till I had children myself, till I actually did it. Like I mentioned it once to my mom and I cried and she cried and was like pretty good. And I said, that's how you reacted. And I really needed you. And she said, children should be protected by being baptized. And I'm not baptizing my children. I said, no, mom, that's not protecting us. I said, and then they came out and I said, you should have protected me. And it was very healing to talk about that. And then with the other person, I didn't want to cause him any trouble in his relationship or in his work. And I didn't want to put myself as this victim. And after so many years, I'm still talking about it. And I'm a grown up now. But when I had a daughter, I realized this is important. This is important for her, that I'm not passing on this pattern anymore, that I'm speaking up for, and it wasn't for my sake anymore, but for something bigger than myself. And then also when I started doing this kind of work, I was more focusing on holistic health, and then I went deeper into things and okay, who are we actually? And being connected to a power source, and I started more unveiling that side of me and helping people with that and trauma integration. And I felt like this is important. I speak about this. And so I wrote him an email shortly after the birth of my daughter, about 5, 6 years ago. And I said, I wrote a really well-written email, and I just said how it was, and that, okay, I just want to tell you, I wasn't just a stupid little girl. I knew what was happening, and this is how it affected me. And I'm doing this for the sake of our relationship, not to put you down, because I don't want to keep this so superficial anymore, like having this as something between us. And you don't have to answer. It's okay. I just needed to say this. But then actually just 2, 3 months ago, it came up again, and I was like, no, I actually need you to answer. I actually need you to speak to this. Yeah, I could resolve it as much in myself as possible and forgive and not need anything. But I also was like, why let him get away with it so easily? And I dealt with this all my life. And then I left voice messages, and he replied. And we had just like the best conversation. And I felt like I got this family member back. And he couldn't even really remember, but he owned it all up. Like he owned it as if it was affecting you like this, if I did that, then. And it's interesting how he, as a protective mechanism, couldn't quite even relate to it anymore, but he owned it and he listened to me. And then after that, we had conversations, and I'm so glad I did that. Like I could have let it go away with it's good enough for me, but and it was so uncomfortable, right? Oh, like I felt so bad for like still having to talk about this, like talking about it publicly. And I didn't want to look like I'm this victim and I need to blame people. But so that's why I really encourage people to, if they get the chance, not that it has to be done, and not that everyone has that knowing, but if you have that knowing, don't turn away from it just because it's uncomfortable. And it was really like what came up that night after, I was just still shaking and working through it. What came up, the sentence was like, now you don't have to be a victim anymore. And I think somehow I was still like I tried not to do, but still carrying it. And I was like, oh, it's done. It's done. So yeah, that was a really powerful experience for me.
Yeah, and yes, it would have been. And thank you for sharing that. And again, I'd just like to acknowledge you and honor you for doing that, for stepping into your power and allowing that healing to happen, not just within you, for you personally, but also for your relationships. And by healing ourselves, you're helping to heal others as well.
Yes.
Their past. Must be an incredible experience to be going through. And I'd love to know, Christiane, for you, what does it really mean? What does deep feminine power mean when you step into that? What does that really mean?
Yeah, our deeper womanness, I would describe it as our magical essence, our deeper sexuality, our mystery. And it's important to see that it's not like a bad thing, because that was part of the disturbing thing for me, that it was like, that's bad to suppress like my natural, basically our natural life force. And we can find it when we're still within, when we stop doing what we think we should do, and when we just drop into what we really are. I would say it's deep, it's intimate, and you can feel it like when you want to experience it, it's like thick nectar. It's like electrical tingling, like hot lava, and it really is magnetic. It's magnetic because it's the real deal.
Yes, and it would be. And I hear you that it is magnetic because you're experiencing it, you're feeling it. And how do you help women to really reconnect with that experience, to reconnect with their inner sources? How do you help women to step into their power?
So I founded the School of Deeper Womanness just over a year ago, Dragoness Rising, as a sanctuary where women can really awaken to their magic, unhook from shame, guilt, and not enoughness, and embody unapologetically who they really are. And that takes place on several levels. Part of what I do, I call somatic neurobalancing, which is an approach that helps to disidentify with our stories we have about ourselves and about lives and our limiting beliefs, and caring, like it helps to recognize who we really are and embody that. And because I think that's really the key, that we have to embody our deeper knowing. That is the true medicine we really need. And in those sessions, I basically help people connect to what they really are, connect with their true resonance, attune to that, integrate traumas. Yes, there's some intuitive, high-level energy work as well, but it's really me holding the space and tuning into that rather than tuning into the story you made about yourself and the limitations you think you have, but really tuning into that so that you can see that better. And also holding the space for what you think you have to suppress, what you think is not allowed, what might feel dark, and to hold space for that to surface, to move that through the body, to help move that out, whatever is ready to move, and birth that and really transform those obstacles into fuel for evolution, into fuel for that deeper movement, that stepping into our power. It's like building a bridge, and it almost feels like birthing something new, burning the old, and using that for newness. And I could talk about this for a long time, but I'm just gonna stop here.
Oh, fine. And yes, you're more than welcome to talk about everything for a long time because it's so interesting, and it's such a, I call it a needed thing, but also a wanted thing too for a lot of women who are now really just beginning the journey, as you said, like awakening or beginning the journey to step into their own power. So it's not a problem about talking for it. And I'd love to know, Christiana, to continue, if there's women out there who are really wanting to move beyond everything about that society expects of women and really step into their power, as you say, and become unapologetic. How do you encourage women to do that, no matter where they are?
Yeah, I would encourage, you have to be willing to go through what's uncomfortable. And that when something's uncomfortable, it doesn't mean you're wrong, but it means you're actually right there. That's it. Like that's where you want to be. My favorite quote was always, "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek," by Joseph Campbell. And it just turned out to be true like 1,000 times for me and for my clients. It's like what we don't want to feel, like that thing that we try to push away. And so many women and men experience depression because we think we have to suppress it. Like we think we have to cope and we're not allowed to feel it, and then we numb ourselves. But it's really about the allowing it, feeling it, and what we're longing for is just on the other side of that. So when we feel that, and it's almost like in birth, like they say, and I've experienced that as well. When you feel you can't do it anymore and it's too unbearable, that means the baby's almost gonna be there, like to not give up then. I find it's really like that. And what did I want to say now? Yeah, to not shy away when it gets difficult. And even when you doubt yourself, that like to feed all of that to your true power, and not like I used to be always like, now I doubt myself, now it's over. Oh, now I'm nervous before a podcast. Now, okay, I'm not doing it right. Rather than, no, it's gonna keep on coming up. Like feed it all to, like it's not bad, it's fuel for what I call that dragoness energy, that fierce, unapologetic energy. And before I've always wronged myself with, but that's that raw power, that real power. And it's not just like feminine, flowery, flowy, like it's powerful and it can feel dark, and it's truly transforming. And I'm going quite deep here, but do not shy away from it when it feels like when your subconscious might come up. Like it's all good to turn it all inside out and have that dirt, as we said earlier, to come up in that barrel. And I find speaking about it is part of it that's truly helpful, as part of the embodiment. And I can share also a little practice that people can incorporate on their own. Like I do offer online support as well, so we don't have to be in person. I do online retreats. I do in-person retreats here on our acreage in Alberta, Canada. But online, it can be done as well because we're not limited by our bodies, right? Like we can connect across universes, really. The beginning of the somatic neural balancing, anyone can do that for themselves. And I recommend to just start with basically stop doing what you think you should do. Like in moments in the day where you feel like you may be nervous, you have some pressure in your body, you're shaky, you're anxious, and you don't really know what it is, but to just stop doing for a moment when you can and just notice it. Just notice what's going on inside. Close your eyes and tune in instead of tuning out, tuning in, and to just feel really what's there. And to not right away going into fixing it, to fix your breath, to fix your posture, you fix the feeling, but to just notice it and hold like a container for it. And then ask yourself if there's any part of your body that would like any attention right now. And it usually comes up pretty quickly, you'll notice. And then to just let it be there and think of it just for a minute. Like it's not forever. It might feel super uncomfortable. And then ask if that part could speak, what would it say? And to not think about it, to not try to look for the right answer and not interpret it, but just let it come up, let it move through. And then also the next level is to then notice if there's any resistance to that. Like, how do you feel about that part? Do you like it or you don't like that it's there? Would you rather like it to go away? Are you judging that you're feeling like that? And that's an important part of the integration, to just almost noticing the judgment of the judgment and let that be there as well and feed that as well to your real power. And if you can do that for yourself, that is a big part of integrating those what many call shadow parts, and get to that, what you're actually longing for, because we basically leave ourselves in order to please others, to belong. It's not that we've been left as children really, but we left ourselves for the sake of that bond that is important for survival for children, of course. But when you're grown up, like you don't need that anymore. And you probably never really had to do that. So if you can do that for yourself and stay with yourself in the midst of these uncomfortable feelings, and you go into that cave, then that's worth so much. And of course, the integration is more powerful if you have someone that can help you with that, that can hold the space for you and reflect back, at least in the beginning. So when I work with my clients, we're really working on creating this safe space, and so they can really go to that deeper depth rather than just like staying on the surface with like meditation is great and affirmations are great, but it doesn't really go to the dirt, right? To the yucky parts, to what we really have to go through. And if you want to really bring out the real you into life, like into form, into embodiment, into your family life, into your work life, into relationships, and then the more you feel this authenticity, this congruency, this legitimacy as you move and speak, the more you feel like, okay, you'll be living like a totally different life. And what you're really longing for. It's not in, so many of us are addicted to whatever it is, to food, to alcohol, to shopping, to emotions. But what we're really longing for is just, we want to get rid of that pain, but that pain is not going to go away till you actually integrate it. And the pain, to be honest, is really what I found, especially in the ayahuasca session that I went through, was quite clear that the pain was actually the doorway to go deep and to let in that pain, to not become that pain, yeah, but to let it move. And because if we try to manage it, we're just holding on to it and it just gets stuck and we become that instead of letting it move through. It's really the pain of the world, but letting it move through as a vessel.
Thank you for sharing. And I'd just like to acknowledge that and agree with everything that you're saying. As humans, generally, we want to avoid pain.
Mm-hmm.
When the pain is there to help us grow, the pain is there to give us a message. And when we're able to go through it, to allow that pain to surface, then, as you said, we can step into a version that is so much more than what we are now.
Yes.
And things. And you've mentioned quite a few practices and things, and thank you for sharing about the somatic practice and just to feeling our feelings, to really give ourselves permission to feel our feelings. But are there any other practices that you would recommend that have supported you, Christiane, in your personal growth journey?
Anything helps really, right? Anything you do with authenticity and from like honesty and authenticity will work, right? It's not about the practice, for example, the meditation or the yoga. It all helps, breathing techniques. But if you think you're gonna do something in order to be, that's just gonna bring you so far. It's like bringing you to the door, but it never leads you through the door. So in the end, it's really not about the practice, but about like where we're coming from, and is it the authentic you, or is it just the voice of what you think you should do, and doing more to be is just not working. But yeah, anything helps. I've done so much and started from holistic health and nutrition and yoga and all kinds of somatic practices, even theater, like I did. It's anything can help, really.
Yes, and it does. Even just moving and acknowledging the body. And she said, and breathing out for me, if I can share, I find breath work some amazing things to release all that stuff, all that dirt, as you talked about, that's just holding us back and causing us a lot of other pain. And so,
Yeah.
thank you.
And I think it's important, like anything that we don't do to fix ourselves. Like every time we think we've got to do that to get better and fix ourselves, we just feed into that same pattern of not being enough.
Yeah, yes, yeah, but just allowing and accepting. And what are some other common obstacles? Because I know trying to fix ourselves and trying to fix this, trying to fix that, I've got to fix that. That's definitely an obstacle that we face. A lot of women face when we're going on the journey. But what are some other common obstacles that women can face, and how do we overcome them?
Definitely doing, achieving to be like getting more and more credentials, or another common thing is like trying to be like a good mother, a good wife, a good coach, a good daughter, a good sister, like all these boxes that we think we should fit into, rather than really letting yourself be who you are and even what you are, and not try to be like what you think you should do and what others might even ask you to be, and almost to be willing to lose relationships that don't serve you anymore, which is a tough one, like a hard one. We all want to be loved, we all want to belong, but if we have to try so hard to be loved and to belong, it's not even a real thing.
Yes, again, I agree. If we really want, if we have to try to be loved, it's not true. It's not the right thing, as you were saying, but just by loving ourselves, really going into loving ourselves. And Christiane, if you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that be?
There's so many things, but the first thing that came up is just that higher perspective of it's all gonna be okay. It's all good, and you're okay. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not crazy, because you can't see the weakness of your parents when you're young. That only comes later, or other family members. But and yeah, to really trust yourself, because as children we've already got it. Like it's all right there. And then when we're being taught to that things have to be hard and that things are wrong and it have to be a certain way, and we suppress our creativity and suppress who we really are, then it's going to be hard. And then we're not able. I found it really hard to get my creativity back, and that flow of what do I actually know. Like I was very good at achieving what others wanted me to be, to get the grades, to know what the teacher wanted, to play the piece of piano, but to actually find your own knowing, your own voice, and to the point where you just have to take the foot off the brakes and it's just flowing like that. That took a long time. I watch my children now, like they already got it. Like my 3-year-old and my 6-year-old. I feel the best I can do is to just not crush them and teach them too much of what I think, but just it's all there.
For sharing that. It's just to go into that wisdom that we have within ourselves.
Hmm.
No matter how old, as you're saying, you're a very wonderful example for your children on how we can overcome past experiences, past trauma, and to step into our power. So,
Hmm.
again, for sharing that. And I'd love to know what would be one piece of wisdom or learning from your journey that you can share to help others to really find balance and being in their lives. Because we live in such a world now, it's a bit chaotic everywhere, it doesn't matter where you live in the world. And we're all so caught up in the human doingness. What's something that you've learned to help you become more balanced in the beingness and being well?
Yeah, what comes up is really because I used to be very imbalanced and used to be like, started with diets and cleanses, and now I'm gonna be perfect and be this really good girl. And then I would just crash and I would just binge and just I just couldn't maintain it anymore and just like do all the things I wanted to do. And then I felt really bad. And then okay, now I'm gonna be pure. And I did this for so many years and was always looking for the perfect diet. It was like a big thing for me and the right way of eating. But then what I found, what helped me to come into balance, and that was just like one expression of that imbalance within me, to just let it all be and to trust my body naturally. For example, of, okay, when I'm hungry, what am I hungry for? How much do I need? Do I need to cleanse right now or not? And that there isn't like one truth for everybody, or one truth, not in diet, not in anything. And to just be okay also with falling. And that's why I called it Dragoness Rising, because it's not a okay, now we're going to be done. Like, and for the longest time, I thought, okay, now I've got it, right? Like now it's going to be, and then we crash again. And it doesn't mean we've done it wrong. It just means that there's different layers surfacing. Okay, now we're going a level deeper and a level deeper, and that it's not ever going to be done because evolution needs difficulty. And that's what we came here for, I believe, for evolution. So if we think, okay, that has to be gone now, and then we beat ourselves up every time we fall, but that it's like a natural, normal thing that we will fall and that we will rise. And the best thing I think is really to not beat ourselves up about it, because we just perpetuate the same pattern, that it's not a mistake when we fall, but that it is the process, and that the faster we get back up, like the better it is, rather than dwelling into the beating ourselves up, but to get back up fast and not think it's a mistake when we fell.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And I love that it's not a mistake when we fall, because it's not, because we can get back up. For me, again, if I can share, we make mistakes to learn, to help us
Yes.
grow. Without making mistakes, we wouldn't know the difference. We wouldn't be able to grow. So thank you for sharing that again.
They can be our big teachers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you mentioned, Dragoness Rising. It's a school of deeper womanness. Tell us about that. And what are some of the other things that you offer? Because we are online, so you can talk to women all over the world. So what does Dragoness Rising really help you?
hmm Yeah, so I launched this mentorship, the Dragoness Blueprint, last year, which is an 8-month mentorship for women, and really including not just business, not just relationship, not just motherhood, but all of it. And we really start with the core, because if we don't know who we really are, nothing's going to be really aligned and working the way how we want it to. So we start with really, okay, who are we? Finding ourselves as the power source, rather than trying to connect to something on the outside as our power source that we think that we need, but knowing it's all within us. And we go like deep into trauma work, somatic work, attunement. And then after that, bringing it all out again, like voicing it and incorporating it into our lives, into a business if we have one, into relationship if we have one, into motherhood, which is very dear and close to me after having had 2 little girls. But it's very customized to the woman. It's whatever is important for them. That's what we will start with and dwell on, rather than, okay, this is the program, this is the whatever 5-step process, and that's the truth. No, like I work with what's coming up for you and your wisdom, your pace. But we cover all these areas, and it's including also the health aspect, because I know it's more like a superficial area, nutrition and all those parts, but it does affect our mind, or if there's toxins in our body, or like it does affect and can bring on depression, or like it's intertwined. And of course, the psychosomatic relationship of when we always think we're not good enough, and we can't speak and we hold that in, how that can make us sick. So we're coming from both angles.
Which is wonderful. And again, I'd just like to acknowledge you for what you're offering for the women of the world. And for anyone who is watching or listening to our podcast, do click on those links below and reach out to Christiane, because you are a life experienced person, Christiane. You're taught by your experiences. There's a lot of people who will go to college and university and get a degree and everything else. but without having the actual life experience. And you've been through it. And I said, thank you for sharing it. And you can tell by your energy, you can tell by your authenticity that you know what you're talking about and that you're there to be able to help other women. And I'd love to know, before we wrap up, can I ask you, what's a simple but a powerful question that we can all ask ourselves daily to really help us align on our true path?
The most powerful question for me, and that I use a lot with my clients, and I think it helps a lot of people, is like, because naturally often the question comes up for us, why is it so difficult? And why me? And it's the quality of the question which will determine the quality of the answer, and where we're asking from. That's the access we will have as an answer. Like you open yourself up to different access, to different knowledge when you ask from a different place and in a different kind of a question. For example, instead you can ask yourself, how can it be easy? And I find already by saying that, it's like opening up a totally different flow through the body, and you might be able to relate to that, and just to trust that what comes through, that's real, that's you, and to go by that, and you can reach like different solutions that you wouldn't reach before. And instead of, like, another good question is like, how through, instead of why me, which is the victim, you can ask, well, how through, how can I make it through? And it'll come. And there isn't one answer, but this is a true, authentic, congruent movement that will help. I found those couple of questions very powerful.
Now we can help ourselves. Thank you. All right, Christiane, it's been a joy and an honor to chat to you today. And like I said, I really want to thank you, honor you. Is there any other question that I could have asked you?
I don't know how much time you want to spend on this, but another nice story is the birth story and how motherhood was connected. And we don't have to incorporate it, but it's just one thought I had that we could have talked about. But it's also, otherwise, it's very complete as it is.
It's fine if you'd like to share it.
Yeah, because it was quite significant. And I thought about it, the question you asked earlier, what else can women do? And it's really the incorporating, the applying of that knowledge. We all know it's good to be authentic and to be us, but like, how are we going to do it, right? If we don't do it when the pressure is there and when it's difficult. And feel free to cut it together if it's too long, but it's a good story, and it really helped me. Like when I became a mother, or like about a couple of weeks before baby came, I started bleeding heavily. And first everybody said, no, it's a first baby. It's gonna take forever till she comes. Don't worry. But I knew, okay, it's gonna be time. And I had this pool set up. I had this holistic home birth plan with my doula and midwife. And then I was called to the hospital, and we thought we'll just go home after whatever they found. But the diagnosis was quite shocking. And what happened was that the placenta was coming off quite significantly, which without that, baby would be without oxygen, without that connection. And the midwife transferred me over right away to the doctor and said this was out of her scope of practice. And all the people I thought would be there, my doula and other people, they weren't there. They were out of the country, and it like went so differently than I thought. And at first it was like, it's good, fine. It's good they found that out. Good, I'm in the hospital. It doesn't matter how baby comes. And I was connected to this monitor, constantly monitoring if there was stress with baby's heart rate. And I couldn't sleep the whole night. And then the next morning, the doctor came in and quite roughly put their hand in down there and just was like, well, okay, we're just gonna induce, I would say, because baby's ready to come, and like, why risk it? You can risk your child's life and your life. And I was like really pushy about it. And I was like something, me was just like, okay, well, okay, I'm open to this, but I don't really know that. And I started asking questions. That's another good thing, to ask questions, because there's this authority that has delivered babies many times. And then what do I know as a first-time mother? I don't know what this feels like. But still something me was like, I didn't feel any pain. And I couldn't believe that I wasn't in pain after internal bleeding. And I didn't feel any immediate being alarmed. I didn't feel any danger from my baby. And I was like, well, if baby's ready to come, why is she not coming then? Why is active labor then not really starting? And I inquired, and I had read this wonderful book, Spiritual Midwifery by Ina May, which you might know, with all these beautiful birth stories. And in those birth stories, it was always like the moment the woman was just calming down, tuned into herself, maybe spent some time with her husband, maybe was intimate and relaxed. Labor just started and baby came. That was always the gist of the stories when they went well. And the horrible stories I've heard from people that had inductions, it always went bad. The story always went the same way of, okay, do something unnatural to the body, then you speed it up too much, then it's too much for the body. Then you have to slow it down again and paralyze people basically. Then they're disconnected. Then heart rate speeds up in the baby. You have to cut it open and then to recover from all of that and the drugs and all that pain and disconnection. And I was just so much more afraid of that than I was of actually just naturally giving birth and trusting my body, my baby. And there was so much pressure, like all these opinions in the room. And then my mother-in-law came in and was like, why didn't I call her? And it was just like everybody in the room. And I hadn't slept in 2 days. And also the bleeding reminded me of an earlier miscarriage I had. And it was just this, okay, of course it's not going to work out for me. Like kind of that same pattern going down that same rabbit hole of pain. And I could see I had to work through something there. So I sent everybody out. And I let in all that pain, and I could see that at the bottom of it was sitting again this unworthiness. Like I'm not worthy to have this child, this beautiful baby, to be so lucky. And also I wasn't trusting my body. I was like, hey, what the hell is wrong with my body? And I was just beating myself up about why doesn't labor start? So once I just really let in that pain and I cried just like from such a deep place in my core. Like I knew the truth of it by just how it hit me the moment I had that thought coming in. So I felt that was like a big contributor to what I had to go through. And so I sent everybody out. And oh yeah, another part of it was I had asked the doctor about intercourse because I read that in that book that could be a natural method of bringing on labor naturally. And the doctor said, yeah, but you can't do that here. But I didn't want to give up so easily, and there was this bathroom connected to our private bedroom, and I told my husband to do the deed, and we did. And I was like, let's just try this out. What's so bad about it? And we lied down in the hospital bed, just the two of us, and calmed down. Finally, I was like almost about to drop into sleep. I was really relaxing, and then 45 minutes in, my water broke. And I felt the labor coming on, and I timed it, and it was like the exact like pattern that the midwife said I should look out for every 4 minutes. People came back in, prepared the room, and I was like, I think my water broke. And they're like, yeah, we know. So we not noticed it on the monitor, and nobody ever acknowledged anything. And but 8 hours later, I had a total natural birth, total healthy, not stressed looking at all baby girl came out. And it was like very significant for me to put my foot down while I was like judged as being crazy. Like my husband heard them talk outside. And it really threatened us. And they said, you have to get out of the room. We need the room for other people. And my husband saw that there were other rooms available. And he told me later. But like, to be in this pressure and still not cave, but would really help me because it wasn't just for my own sake, but for, okay, this is about this beautiful baby. And it doesn't mean that it's never true to induce or that for somebody else it could be totally different. But for me, I'm really grateful for this experience and that it wasn't just this nice, cushy, holistic home birth, but this was really actually truly empowering for me.
It's very empowering. Thank you so much for sharing. Like, truly, what a wonderful story, to trusting your intuition, to trusting your body, because you know what's right. And yes, medical people have got experience and degrees and everything else, but it's your body and you've trusted that. So congratulations on
Yeah, and it was interesting.
the birth of your beautiful baby daughter to take place naturally.
Yeah, and I could realize that actually nobody can really help you. Like in my second birth, I had a home water birth and I had all these people there wanted and friends, and it was almost like I almost had to just disconnect from people and be like, I just have to tune in and now not perform and be on anyone's schedule. So that was interesting too to see that in contrast that nobody can actually really know for you what to do and your rhythm and how to do it. So that was like such a good lesson.
Thank you so very much for sharing that. And I'm pretty sure, again, there'll be a lot of women out there who will take inspiration from your story. and your journey, all the challenges that you've been through, and now you're coming out on the other side, and you are a shining example of what you can become when you step into your power and own your voice, becoming authentic, and don't worry about what anyone else says or does or thinks you should be. Like we said, to be unapologetic and to claim it, to claim your deeper womanness. I love that. So let's reach out to our beautiful Christiane from Dragoness Rising and to claim our deeper womanness. Thank you so much for joining us today, Christiane. I have really had a wonderful conversation, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon.
Thanks, Sophia. Thanks for giving me the space, and I really enjoyed myself with you.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Pathways to Wellbeing podcast. It has been an honor to share this transformative conversation with Christiane, and I hope it has inspired you to embrace your own power and authenticity. Remember, your journey to well-being begins with the courage to look within, to feel, and to grow. If today's discussion did resonate with you, I invite you to take the next step. Visit us at www.sacredu, that's the letter U, .love, where you will find a wealth of resources, connections, and a community of empowered women ready to support you. Don't just listen, engage. Let's walk this path together. Did you find value in this episode? Please subscribe to our podcast, leave a review, or share it with someone else who might need to hear this message. And before you go, ask yourself, how can I honor my deeper wisdom today? The answer could change your life. Stay grounded, stay inspired, stay connected. Until next time, keep walking your pathway to well-being.